Hello, friends. This is Bob Croddy. I'm back. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Democrat Party and the state that it's in today. I'm going to start with about a 3-minute Robert Kennedy speech, part of his speech. And I hope you enjoy this like I do. We grew up a very Democrat, Catholic type of family who adored the Kennedys. So stick with me, and I think you'll see the whole story here in a little bit.
This is a day of affirmation, a celebration of liberty. We stand here in the name of freedom. At the heart of that Western freedom and democracy is the belief that the individual man, the child of God, is the touchstone of value, and all society, all groups and states exist for that person's benefit. Therefore, the enlargement of liberty for individual human beings must be the supreme goal and the abiding practice of any Western society. The first element of this individual liberty is the freedom of speech, the right to express and communicate ideas, to set oneself apart from the dumb beasts of field and forest, the right to recall governments to their duties and to their obligations. Above all, the right to affirm one's membership and allegiance to the body politic, to society, to the men with whom we share our land, our heritage, and our children's future. Hand in hand with freedom of speech goes the power to be heard, to share in the decisions of government which shape men's lives. Everything that makes man's life worthwhile, family, work, education, a place to rear one's children, and a place to rest one's head, all this depends on the decisions of government. All can be swept away by a government which does not heed the demands of its people, and I mean all of its people. Therefore, the essential humanity of man can be protected and preserved only where government must answer, not just to the wealthy, not just to those of a particular religion, not just to those of a particular race, but to all of the people. And even government, by the consent of the governed, as in our own Constitution, must be limited in its power to act against its people, so that there may be no interference with the right to worship, but also no interference with the security of the home. No arbitrary imposition of pains or penalties on an ordinary citizen by officials high or low. No restriction on the freedom of men to seek education or to seek work or opportunity of any kind, so that each man may become all that he is capable of becoming.
Again, it's Bob Croddy. I'm back. Hey, you know what? I see a photo here of Robert Kennedy, and that's who just had that speech. And when I was a kid, we were very Democrat, very Catholic, and Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy, that's what the family talked about. We listened to these types of speeches, and we could identify with these types of folks. And I still listen to these speeches to this day. The Democrat leaders like Robert Kennedy or John F. Kennedy. I don't necessarily agree with every single thing they say, maybe as I did when I was younger, but most of it's right on. Most of it celebrates freedom. And so what I wanted to do is I want to stop for a moment, just talk a little bit about the Democrat Party in its current state. I grew up in a very Democrat family. I know I've said that a few times. I went to Jimmy Carter's inauguration when I was a boy. I was just a little boy, but I was there. And I shook Jimmy Carter's hand at Garfield Park when he was running for president. We were there. My mother worked for his campaign. I have more John F. Kennedy stuff than you could possibly imagine. Even that photo on my wall in my office is a John F. Kennedy photo that was given to my grandmother because she worked his campaign and Robert Kennedy's campaign. She was a worker for the party. At 18, just like my mom and grandmother, I was ready to work for the Democrat Party. I was 18 years old, a Democrat precinct committeeman, ready to work. And I had my own area in the city to work, and I was in charge of, and I was a Democrat worker. You know, so from 18 to 0 to 18, you know, that's your formative years. That's the K through 12. That's your formative years. That's what you learn. That's what you know. I know the Democrat Party pretty well. At least I thought I did. The Democrat Party I was raised in. So I want to stop for a moment and take a step back and talk to my Democrat friends and my Republican friends and say, what exactly is going on with the Democrat Party? You know, I remember my sister invited me to eat dinner with, I believe he was the Secretary of State at the time, if not the governor. I was 15 years old. We were in the heart of all things Democrat, and my mom and my grandmother too. And here I am, I think quite objective. Although I've been Republican now for several years, I am not beholden to any one party. I'm beholden to freedom. And I seek the party that will help us promote freedom in this country and secure the U.S. Constitution. I'm more interested in that than I am a political label. So if the Democrat Party someday were to make sense to me, you know, then I would entertain that. I'm entertaining, and I would like to think that you would be entertaining other thoughts and other ideas. The Democrat Party has changed a lot since I was younger. John F. Kennedy looked at Castro and the Che Guevara, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, as the enemy of the free state, the free individual spirit. They were the enemy. And, you know, we don't, you know, that was kind of, everyone agreed on that idea together, that this communism, these socialists were the enemy of the free individual self. And when you listen to John F. Kennedy, when you listen to that Robert Kennedy audio I just played at the beginning of this, they understood that freedom from the individual was the cornerstone of our existence and our greatness. Okay? So the Democrat Party has changed from this John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy party that saw socialism as the enemy of freedom, that were the defenders of freedom, John F. Kennedy. If you listen to some of his audios, you would be shocked. I think the current Democrat person that's the activist type, the anarchist type, not the, you know, that maybe the everyday Democrat, but some of these activists, I think they'd be shocked if they were to hear John F. Kennedy and what he said about socialism and Castro and Che and people like that. Obama, I'm going to bring this up again. I know those who've watched my videos have seen this a few times, but I'm going to show it real quick because it tells, this picture has it's worth 1,000 words, maybe 1,000,000 words, probably 1,000,000 words. This is our U.S. President, Barack Obama, standing in front of a Che memorial. Che Guevara, if I pronounce it correctly, was a Cuban revolutionary, communist revolutionary. So this president, Barack Obama, his last term just last year in 2016, goes to Cuba, and in Cuba brings the whole U.S. envoy, everyone he brought, all of his administrative staff, people lined up in some weird, funky way to express to the world that we are a new United States, you know, under new, more open-minded United States or something, accepting socialism and communism. Because I guarantee you there's no way John F. Kennedy would have ever stood in front of a Che memorial, let alone lined up his entire U.S. envoy staff, you know, forced them probably by order to stand. And some of the people, if you look in that picture, some of the people don't look too happy. They're actually grimacing. It's kind of interesting. And I sure that wouldn't be happy if my president ordered me to do that. So what we have to understand is this Democrat Party has changed quite a bit. We have Bernie Sanders, who's going around as a socialist. When you look at him as a political person in the paper, and you look at who is Bernie Sanders, well, you'll see an S behind his name, not a D, an S. Some reports said he has never been a Democrat. He's always been a member of the Socialist Party. In Vermont, he's an independent. So an independent socialist, Bernie Sanders. This man ran a Democrat primary, and half the Democrat folks voted for him. So Bernie Sanders, a socialist. Barack Obama stands in front of a Che memorial in Cuba and forces the whole U.S. envoy to stand in solidarity with Che Guevara, who was a communist revolutionary who was in charge of a prison, who killed hundreds of freedom-loving Cubans. They were called dissidents, people who rebelled against the communism. He was ordered to kill them, and he did so. He went on to Bolivia, Che, and killed hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, as a leader of a communist revolution. That's who that man was, that our president, Barack Obama, was standing in front of. If that doesn't get you really thinking, I don't understand, because to me, that's a huge symbol that Barack Obama has taken the whole Democrat Party so far to the left that we're going to have a president and our U.S. envoy in Cuba standing in solidarity with Che. I think that between that and Bernie Sanders, it really starts to tell a story about the Democrat Party that I grew up in, that was very active in. Families told stories about the Democrat Party and how it affected our life, and how we were going to, how it was a political movement that was worth investing in. That was the family I was raised in. And here we have Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama. Bernie Sanders, a socialist, who many reports, again, has said that he was never a Democrat. He's always been a socialist. Socialism, my friends, by definition, is incompatible with freedom. By definition, socialism, collectivism, is incompatible with freedom. Our country has always stood for freedom and liberty, and the U.S. Constitution assured that. So, just by definition, socialism is incompatible with our very existence, what has made us great. I like that photo of North Korea and South Korea, and at nighttime, North Korea is completely dark, and South Korea is lit up because of the capitalism and all the freedom and all the things that they've enjoyed under our umbrella of safety, that they've been able to build a great country. But North Korea is dark. It's very dark at night. And that's still true to this day. So this photo floats around. You'll see it sometimes. The Democrat Party seems to be more interested in a 20-year-old man coming into our country from Iraq than getting employment for a 20-year-old man from Indianapolis' East Side, Washington Street. I'll say that again. The Democrat Party today, my current U.S. House member, seems more interested in the rights and the concerns of the Iraq guy or gal coming in at 20 years old, coming over into our country, than he cares about the person on the street from the city of Indianapolis who's looking for employment. It's pitiful how these folks continue to push this global agenda. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. Freedom of speech. We've seen in Berkeley, the Democrat people, the activists, want to shut down freedom of speech. We heard Robert Kennedy earlier talk about how important freedom of speech is. What has happened to our Democrat Party? And I'm not trying to attack all Democrats, because I think there's a good group of Democrat people who will listen to what I'm saying and see this objectively. And that's why I brought in so much of my background about being part of the Democrat Party, about John F. Kennedy back there, that photo that was given to my grandmother, and so much, because I feel like I'm very objective. The Democrat Party has gone off the rails. Freedom of speech is being shut down on universities around the country. They don't want to hear the other side. When have we ever been a society that doesn't want to hear the other side? Who wants to package words that say, you can't say, I wrote the word heavyset. I was describing a person, and someone said, why would you feel the need to say that? Kind of like a police state type of thing, monitoring my words. I said heavy-set woman. I was describing her look. We can't even describe people's appearance. This nanny state, this socialist collectivism, that everyone has to be happy and everything has to work out. The pursuit of happiness was the idea of the pursuit of happiness was that we had the opportunity to be happy. There's no guarantee we'd be happy. I just want the government to leave me alone so that I can pursue my happiness. I don't want someone to guarantee me a job or guarantee me happiness. It didn't work very well in the Soviet Union. Freedom of religion. You know, under Obamacare, Senator Joe Donnelly and other people like him with Barack Obama forced Little Sisters of the Poor and Hobby Lobby and many other companies that had heartfelt positions about their religious value system, forced them to do things with their healthcare dollars that they fundamentally disagreed with. Fundamentally disagreed with the approach of this Obamacare through religious reasons, heartfelt reasons. But that didn't matter. The Hyde Amendment was thrown out. One of the big conversations in the U.S. House of Representatives with the fellow from Michigan, can't remember his name. There was a Democrat holdout, about 5 or 10 of them, that wouldn't vote for it. Stupak, I believe is his name. The whole idea was we wanted the Hyde Amendment. The Democrats wanted the Hyde Amendment put into this, which assured that things like abortions wouldn't be paid by taxpayers, that we had those religious freedom spaces in place. And he was right. Those Democrats were right. We should have had the Hyde Amendment in Obamacare, but that's not what happened. See, I know there are a group of Democrats out there that understand what is happening in this country is wrong. Freedom of speech is under attack. Freedom of religion is under attack. And they keep pushing it, and they keep pushing it. In the Democrat National Convention, just 4 years ago, they booed God on the floor of the convention. I'll put that link on the bottom of this so you can see what I'm talking about. That's not the Democrat Party I grew up in. They don't want to refer to God. They want to boo God during the party convention on the floor. It's become pathetic. But this is how, and this is one of the points I'm making, because this Democrat Party I loved and grew up with has changed dramatically. And we need to call it out for what it is. The consolidated power is what they seek at all cost. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion. They want to deny this to consolidate power. That's what socialists do. I don't believe all Democrats are socialists. That's why I'm putting this out. Because I believe half the Democrat Party is kind of blindly going along with this. And we need to share this video with our Democrat friends. You know, a more moderate person who will listen. Because the Democrat Party is changing. It's like that frog that's in the boiling water. And it doesn't know at first. It's sitting in the water, and it's sitting there, and the water's heating up, and it's heating up, and it's coming to a boil. It just boils the damn thing to death. It can't handle the heat eventually, but it didn't see it coming. It just gradually happened. I'm telling you, this Democrat Party has gradually changed, but under Barack Obama, it has accelerated tremendously into a changing unit that is actually working against the free men and women of this country. And we need to call it out for what it is. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. These are all foundational pieces to our country that the Democrat Party is openly attacking. They're bringing in things, you know, I talked about booing God, but then they want to bring up gender confusion. You know, which bathroom, why are we spending taxpayer dollars and tremendous amounts of time trying to figure out which gender we really are? But this is pushed by the Democrat Party, specifically under Barack Obama. To me, it's caused chaos and confusion. The military is spending more time trying to figure out which bathrooms are supposed to build next than they are defending our country. This is crazy. I think most people in the alternative lifestyle type folks, I think most of them would say, this is a little nuts too. Why are we just fixed on these things that make it so that we have a collectivism, that we have to think about the welfare of everyone in a collective way? And unless everyone's happy, we all will not be happy. It will deny our individual freedom in the quest of everyone getting everything they could ever want. Well, that's utopia. Doesn't exist. the form of communism in USSR did not work well at all. Another thing that the Democrat Party's doing and the way they've changed is they're promoting a national police force. So if Hillary Clinton would have won, Barack Obama was well on his way to pushing a national police force, where the police departments have always been the sheriffs at the county level. And what they were doing under Obama was they were going into these local police departments and forcing them under the guise of all sorts of things, racism, discrimination, all types of things, even when they didn't exist, to take over the departments. Now, maybe that's, under Trump, that's going to change, and that's going to stop. But the Democrat Party, in the quest for power, it'll be back. It's going to come back to this national police force, because the local police can't do the job anymore. And that's where we were heading. And if Hillary would have won, I think that whole idea would have continued. Globalism versus the United States of America, the Paris Agreement. The Democrat Party is putting the values of the people around the world ahead of jobs and what the United States needs. They're trying to appease people around the world, the Democrat Party, like in the Paris Agreement, to the tune of letting China not have to conform to the policies, while we conform to the policies, losing jobs, killing our industry. In China, just to make them happy, they didn't have to follow the exact same policies in this new Paris Agreement. These types of agreements, whether it's TPP or NAFTA, are not, the Democrat Party has been pushing them. They're not in the best interest of our country. And that's one of the great things about Donald Trump, is he's more interested in taking care of us, the people, than in the United States than he is, the Paris Agreement that, is worried about everything but the United States. The UN, the Democrat Party pushes the UN. The UN, in concept, by some, they want it to be the national government, the global government. So the idea of globalization, the Democrat Party seems to thrive. And I think the reason why globalism is so appealing to these folks, this new Socialist Democrat Party, Obama new Socialist Democrat Party, the reason why globalism is so appealing is if they can have a global system in place, then by default we lose our freedom. By default we lose our U.S. Constitution. If we're more like everybody else around the world, we're going to lose our freedom. We're going to lose our identity, which has made the greatest country in the world. And that's why people like me are willing to speak up and say something, because we are seeing that we were on the verge of losing the greatest country the world's ever known. And the Democrat Party and their quest and their push is undermining our freedom and our liberty. So I'm from Indiana. We worked at Indiana, Ohio, Michigan group just recently. So we're from the Midwest, some of us, most of us. These folks, these everyday people on the streets, need to understand that this Democrat Party is not working in our best interest anymore. If Hillary Clinton would have won, the corruption that she was bringing in with hundreds of millions of dollars of slush fund in her Clinton Foundation, the email scandal, the uranium to the Russians, the Bill Clinton speeches by the millions. They appoint judges who basically rubber stamp their existence, their philosophies. We had the Iowa Cornhusker kickback. We had the Louisiana Purchase. Those are both, you can Google those two terms, the Louisiana Purchase and the Cornhusker kickback. Those were both corrupt ordeals where they were buying votes, I believe for Obamacare, if I remember right. The Congress or the Senator, Congress, I think actually it was both senators, and both of those states were reluctant to support it, so they threw in $500 million in the middle of the night, and under the radar they did all types of things. That's corruption. So it's not just Hillary Clinton. It's the idea that they would use the government, like was brought out with the Podesta emails. They would use the government to undermine the Catholic Church. That was brought up, that they actually wanted to use the U.S. government and its tax dollars to undermine the Catholic Church. You know, this is the new Democrat Party. This is not what John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy would have signed on for. I'm sure of that. The wealth around the United States was meant to be in the United States for the people. Capitalism is capital in the hands of free people. So when you have capital around Washington, D.C., when wealth is accumulating all around Washington, D.C., that's a sign of a problem. And what the recent reports have been from Forbes and other things like that do this type of research is in the last 20 years, the wealth in this country has circulated around Washington, D.C. That should offend everyone, not just me. It should offend everyone. And this is the philosophy of the Democrats, a bigger Washington, a stronger Washington, a wealthier Washington. I want the wealth to be in Hamilton County, Indiana, or Hamilton County, Ohio. You know, I want the wealth. I don't mind Beverly Hills being wealthy, you know, but I don't want all the wealth around Washington, D.C. The Democrat Party, one of the things that they do is they divide us as a country to win. And the media is totally in the tank to help them. So the media will basically be a mouthpiece, a continual mouthpiece for what the Democrats are saying. So the whole thing about Russia, the media, most of the media, ABC, NBC, CNN, they take this and they just repeat it as though it's true. Even if it's, you know, Trump might have had some involvement with the Russians. He could have had. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. You know, all this speculation type words, the media takes it and runs with it. Whatever the Democrat talking points are, whatever their concepts are floating out there, whatever Hillary Clinton and her campaign was pushing out and promoting during the campaign, it just gets regurgitated on Hollywood or late night comedy or on these media things. So we need to understand what's happening. But the Democrat Party, one example of this is racism. This whole thing was thrown out there. There was a funny point during the campaign where the Democrat Party is using racism to divide our country. I mean, that's evil. To promote racism, to make it seem, and the media is going along with this, to make it seem like Trump or Republicans are racist. So here it is. It was funny because CNN had this live. I'm almost sure. I'll put the link on this one too at the bottom of this when I'm done. But the CNN folks said, well, you know, we're going to go live to Judy on the Trump floor. And they were just talking about how racist everyone was. I'm not joking. This is, I mean, for the most part, this is how it went down. So he said, we're going to go live on the floor, Trump, you know, and how terrible it is. And all these, you know, the black folks can't get a fair hearing by the Trump people. And they're terrible. And Trump's awful. And Trump people are awful and racist and mean and all that. And then they go live and they go to CNN on the floor. And she's talking to a black guy. An African-American guy, you know, so they're sitting there, and the black guy's got his arm around the white guy, and he says, there's nothing going on here but love. And more or less, that's the way it went down. I'm going to put that link on the bottom of here, because it was a total gotcha moment where they showed the Democrat Party and CNN kind of in collusion, working, and just to find out that when you go to the floor of the Trump event, none of that's going on. It's all made up. And it's been made up all along. Now, my friend Lisa Watkins is an African-American young gal in Cincinnati. We went to the inauguration together. You know, she said, there's nothing but love here. This is the concept of racism at Trump, you know, skinheads, everything's skinheads. This is meant to divide us for political gain. Ferguson, Baltimore, all these things are strummed up to divide us. It's evil. It's awful. And this is the new Democrat Party, using racism, because if they can't scare people back into voting Democrat, then they lose power. You know, so they have to make everyone that, you know, women need to hate men because men are mean, and therefore so they promote that to make sure that the women vote stays in the Democrat camp. They promote hatred between African Americans and white folks because they need African Americans to stay in serious numbers in the Democrat camp. And if they don't, they lose big time. So they got a lot at stake here, the Democrat Party. And they're going to scare the heck out of promoting racism even that doesn't exist for political gain. The war on terrorism was another division moment. We had, after 9/11, the consensus was Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, John Kerry, the big names, all who's who of the Senate Democrat Party, because Hillary Clinton was a Senate Democrat at that moment. They voted for the war in Iraq. They looked at the same intelligence that President Bush had, and they voted for the war in Iraq. And fast forward about by 2006, so 2003 was the war. By the 2006 elections, the Republicans were the most evil people that ever happened in the world because of the Iraq war and it wasn't the right war. And you listen to their wording, and it was real goofy. You know, Barack Obama did the same thing going in 2008. You know, I'm going to be tough on terrorism, but this was the wrong way, and this was the right way. Well, the wrong way, they all voted for. So why did it all of a sudden become the wrong way? Well, because they looked at their political tea leaves, and it said, hey, you've got to, if you're this way, you can get more votes. So for political gain, they divided, the Democrat Party divided the United States of America's population against and for, so they could win elections. And in 2006, I was running a congressional campaign that year. They won a good-size election on that idea. I'm almost done, but I do have a few more points. Obama was so far to the left, as I pointed out with the Che and Obamacare and the lies to get Obamacare passed and the Hyde Amendment being thrown out of Obamacare. All this, there's so much that Obama brought in and planted some of the most leftist, far left, radical people in our government. That's what Trump's dealing with right now. People are like, that are opposed to Trump, they look at him as somebody who is, that he has an agenda that's out there. No, no. Actually, in the history of politics, Donald Trump's very moderate. I wish he were more conservative because I'm more of a conservative fella, but and I'm not saying he's not, you know, come through for those who are conservative, but what I'm saying is he's a lot more moderate in the last 75 years of presidents. It's Barack Obama who's a crazy leftist socialist type of character. And anything compared to him, like the Paris Agreement or these other things, that, you know, the gender bathrooms and all these different things, it seems that is such a far contrast that must be the problem. This new president must be the problem. No, the Democrat Party has been hoodwinked. They have been sold a bad bill of goods, and they need to clean house. The Democrat Party has lost their way. And I'm here today to ask for the Democrat Party, those members that are open-minded, to join us. Join the Freedom Party. Join freedom again. Denounce all these things that I've listed out today. Join us. One of the things, I want to encourage you to stay involved. You're welcome to switch parties, but we need to stay active as Trump people, as Trump supporters. We need to go to rallies. We need to ramp up our operations going into 2018, because if we do not, the Democrats will run their, and we don't call them out on their division and on their socialism. They are going to come at us and clean house in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. It's going to be hard for the Senate. I've looked at the map. It's not good for the Democrats at all. But the House, that's what they're hungry. And if we don't match that hunger for freedom, we're going to lose a lot. Because Trump's agenda will be stopped in its place if the Democrats were to get control of the House. The Democrats that remain after Obama are radical. It's like, who can outdo the socialist type of people? Who can outdo the other guy? And they've been outdoing each other so far that they have threatened us as free people politically. So, and unfortunately, they've threatened us recently. We saw in Washington, D.C. These folks are not happy unless they have the power. Consolidate the power, deny us free speech. And I don't mean deny us freedom of religion. And I don't mean all Democrats. I know there are people like my grandmother and like my mom that are out there that maybe aren't aware, that aren't courageous enough. But I'm telling you, we are the majority. You know, we, the freedom-loving people, are the majority. You know, some of the worst white people, so I always say to some of my black friends, I say, some of the worst white people in this world have been socialists. Some of the worst socialist, terrible men have been white men. I don't care about what color you are, what race you are. You know, what unites us as race and different cultures and different religions is our quest for freedom. And that's what we need to defend at the ballot box. And we need to get ready for 2018. Because if we don't, if we sit back and we don't organize campaign events, if we don't show up to Trump rallies, if we don't have Trump rallies, if we don't meet political force with political force, we are going to have a serious problem in 2018. And it starts today. So I really am wanting you to reach out to your friends and that are Democrat and say, hey, share this video with them. Join us on the People's Grassroots National Campaign. That's our new flagship page. Get everyone you know on that page, and ask your Democrats to consider all these points today. Happy Independence Day. Fight. We will never give up our freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and our right to bear arms.